Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, The Realities and Prevention of Cybercrime in a Business World, conducted by the Chamber Academy of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce in collaboration with Microsoft. On the onset, I would like to thank our corporate sponsors, Hutchinson Telecommunication Lanka Private Limited, London Stock Exchange Group, Sri Lanka. Without further ado, I would like to inform everyone of the house rules. Kindly switch off your cameras and mute your microphones. Only the speakers will use their cameras and microphones for the presentation and dialogue. Questions from the participants will only be taken through the chat box. A recording of the session will be shared on the conclusion of the session. I now welcome Ashik Niaz, the moderator of today's session. Over to you, Ashik.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to make sure that I am heard and seen. Can someone just put a thumbs up, or someone can just unmute themselves and tell me that everyone can see me and hear me? All right, I see some thumbs up. Thank you very much. Hello and very good evening to everyone who has joined us here. We hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. We at Microsoft are quite humbled to be joining hands with the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce via their initiative of the Chamber Academy to bring you this program, The Realities and Prevention of Cybercrimes in a Business World. I'm Ashik Niaz, the Small and Medium Business Lead and the Digital Natives Lead for Microsoft Southeast Asia Emerging Markets. 2021 brought powerful reminders that to protect the future, we must understand the threats of the present. Now, with the new norm having us to adapt technology and digital means even faster for all our businesses and organizational continuity, which has brought upon the key element, data, to be even more so the most important element we rely upon to help us navigate through our workflows. Tech digitizing the way we work, bringing in the hybrid work culture, which is here to stay actually. The top discussions have become around data at every individual and every organization that we come across. This is why data has become the lifeline to all the organizations across all industries as we generated over many years and even till today, this very instance. So this being the powerful resource, it comes with greater responsibility to each and every one of us. And this leads us to taking steps and measures in how we take data into consideration of protecting them for our business continuity and as an individual capacity as well. Cyber attacks have become one of the biggest threats, not only to businesses, but to the society at large. As markets grow more global and complex, we rely more and more on technology, no matter where you are. So are the new threats in the shape of cyber intrusion, manipulation, misuse, and other cyber misconduct. Change brings opportunity, as I recall, for both attackers and also for the defenders ourselves. Hence, the realities and preventions of cyber crimes in a business world is very, very vital. To speak more around this hot topic, we are joined with three experts who will help us really know what measures we all as an organization and even at an individual can take to prevent across cyber crimes. First off, we have Asela Vaidyalanka, who has been a prominent personality in the sphere of cybersecurity with over a decade of experience in the progressive technology and digital strategy, garnering extensive qualifications in both the legal and technical arenas. Asela is a pioneer, trailblazer, and an avant-garde in the information security marketplace. Asela, welcome aboard, and it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Ashik, for that very kind introduction. I hope you can all of you can bear with me once I just get my presentation loaded up. I trust everyone can see my presentation.
Yes, Asela, if you could just put it on presenter mode for the better view.
I think it's coming.
All right.
I hope it's visible to everyone, Ashik. I'm on the blind here. So.
It's visible. If you could just click on the presenter view.
I already did, so let me just try to. Could you see the second slide, or are you just seeing the presenter view still?
Maybe Asil, if you could just reshare it, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll do that. Thank you. I hope we're good to go. Ashik, I am waiting, just waiting a confirmation.
Yeah, so it's not still presenting on my end. Are you using a second screen by any chance?
No.
No, okay. If I could just get a confirmation from Chintaka what you are also able to view, and then we could definitely proceed with it.
No, we are still not on the presenter view, Astela. If you could go to the slideshow on top and try that on the top menu.
Better?
You tried that on. Can you hear me, Astela?
I can hear you. Yes. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing?
Just
Because
go to the. We are seeing your first slide, but it's not on presenter mode.
Right. Okay. So this is a little. Because as far as I'm concerned, I am on presenter mode. That's what I'm trying to understand.
All right. So I think let's continue.
Yeah. Let's continue.
Yeah.
Without any. I mean, I'm sure you guys can see at least on the presenter view. Yes.
Yes,
or
we
rather,
can.
the way we can. So thank you very much, Ashik, and I apologize for that small technical glitch. We will just carry on. And thank you very much for the chamber, as well as my colleagues at Microsoft, for giving the opportunity for discussing this very pertinent and important topic, where we sort of take a very quick look at what cybercrime is, what in terms of a business perspective it is, what is happening globally, and more importantly, what are the local developments. I've been given a time slot of 15 minutes, which is, I don't think it'll do justice to the topic, but I understand that there are other speakers. And we are playing a T20 match, and Ashik has just given me the opening batsman's role. So without, basically spending too much time on it, I want to just thank everyone, and let's move on to just understanding a little bit more about cybercrime and how it impacts all of us. So when we look at cybercrime and how it has evolved and the sophistication that it has achieved, we are looking at a grim outlook. Some of the examples that I've taken here, four, but I can tell you a few more. Back in Germany in 2020, a patient died during a ransomware attack that was launched on a hospital. This was the first known casualty directly impacting from a cyber attack. And back in 2020 again, the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, I'm sure most of you all have taken your booster, that particular vaccine's vaccination data, research data, was hacked via the European Medical Agency. Back in 2017, the petrochemical plant in Saudi Arabia, hackers tried to blow up said plant using basically intruding into the equipment and trying to create disruptions there. And back in 2016, hackers infiltrated the water utility controls to change the chemical levels, specifically I believe the chlorine levels, in order to sort of contaminate the tap water. And of course, very recently, as last year, we saw the instance of the Colonial Pipeline hack, where hackers or a cybercrime group was able to infiltrate a certain company that is in charge of the petrol distribution in southern United States, and that saw basically 5 days of no fuel being available to large parts of the United States because of that particular hack. So these tragedies, these impacts of these businesses are only limited now from the hacker's imagination. And when we look at it from a very business point of view, we have to gain an understanding of what the risk outline would be. And we can take a very fairly important pertinent point from the Global Risk Report from the World Economic Forum, that is a global think tank based in Switzerland. And part of the analysis, although they have identified other pertinent global risks, it's important to note that they have identified cybersecurity failures as one of the top 10 issues in terms of crises that can happen, or crises that have escalated after the COVID-19. And when you take the global risk horizon, I don't need to go through maybe 5-10 years, what they reckon and what the analysis has revealed is from now to 2-year risk horizon, cybersecurity failure will have a major impact in organizations globally in terms of how they run their businesses. Now, more pertinently, what we need to reflect upon is there has been a 435% increase in ransomware attacks since 2020. And also because of this growth in ransomware, we have seen partially the boom in cryptocurrency, which is you can see from the left-hand bottom cell, where global cryptocurrencies have also grown from 2020 onwards, quadrupled in value. And this is directly linked, security researchers have linked this to the increase in cybercrime, pertinently global ransomware operations. And this particular report also reflects upon 3 different scenarios that can happen, but in the interest of time, I will just focus on one. One is that they have taken the NotPetya, which was a particular strain of ransomware that was infecting machines. They have said, what if, similar to COVID-19, this particular ransomware can evolve within machines. And this particular ransomware can spread without a central command and control, and where it will continue to evolve and become unstoppable. And the only alternative would be to plug the machines off the internet. And you can just imagine what sort of global impact an $800 billion industry in terms of digital revenue and digital commerce would be impacted with such a situation. We have seen of late a global response and a global conversation around cybersecurity, which is a good thing. We saw President of the United States, President Biden's initial speech to the United Nations. He spoke about hardening critical infrastructure against cyber attacks and establishing clear rules within cyberspace for other countries to be allowed to function in a normal situation. And also basically a call was made to stop aggression in terms of cyberspace as well. I think they were indirectly referring to Russian. Also, last year, in terms of the world leaders meeting in the G7 summit, we saw various key policy measures and announcements was made. But what is more interesting to us was the ransomware got a specific mention. And you must understand, this is the 7 most powerful economies in the world. The fact that they got together, and one of the key risks and the key talking points that they've understood was ransomware is a pertinent point to mention. And also they underscore the importance of supply chain security, meaning that global supply chains have to be secured from global attacks and cybercrime based attacks. So then we can just move on to what the Sri Lankan experience is. Now, if you take the Sri Lankan experience, in the interest of time, I'll try to condense this. But the Sri Lankan experience can be classified into 3 particular pillars. One is state and state-owned assets. 2 is organizations, businesses, listed or non-listed, large enterprises. And C, it would be the individuals that are impacted. If you take the state level or public level attacks that have happened within Sri Lanka, you can trace back the first identified cyber attack, believe it or not, to the year 1998, when the then Liberation Army Tigers of Elam flooded the Sri Lankan embassies with 800 emails for a period of 2 weeks. This was actually the first known instance where a terror outfit used a cyber attack on a state level entity. So that is one for the books. But as you see, as the hostilities ceased in 2009, we have constantly seen a ramping up of attacks, and this has become somewhat of an annual exercise now, where we see somewhere towards Independence Day or Victory Day an increase of attacks, particularly for state level infrastructure, state websites, or state digital or e-commerce services. Most pertinently, in 2020, individuals who were pertinent on disruption went after the top level domains of Sri Lanka, and that is the LK domain. And although the damage that they wanted to do was only a political message, certainly researchers are still trying to identify the extent of which that attack and the impact it would have caused. Certainly anyone with a .lk domain would have been impacted, and I don't need to tell this audience, your businesses, your commerce, your applications may be relying a lot on .lk based domains, and an impact to that would have been catastrophic for business operations. So then we move on to the enterprise level or organizational level attacks or situations that can occur. Now, if you look at the news items that have been around since 2020, we have seen an intensity increase in terms of cyber crimes and basically people raising alarm bells of devices being compromised in Sri Lanka. One pertinent point is cybercrimes have doubled in 2020, and I'm sad to say that this trend line has continued up until 2022, given the stats that we're supposed to come in. Mr. Oshada Senanayaka, who's the chairman of ICTA, made a startling statement in a public forum that over 7 million devices are already infected by ransomware in Sri Lanka. And also, there have been many instances of why cybercrime and attention not given towards cybercrime is a ticking time bomb in Sri Lanka, and more attention should be given. Our friends at Microsoft had kind enough to actually give some sort of policy level and think tank level analysis on this, given that there is very little statistics to go on. But in 2019, Microsoft made the revelation that Sri Lanka is the second highest malware encounter rate in the world, according to Microsoft's own security intelligence report, and basically identified and highlighted that how much Sri Lanka is vulnerable, not only in this region, but globally. And there are instances and there are examples of this in fact happening, and I'm only disclosing what has been shared in the public limelight in terms of ensuring those organizations do respecting their privacy as well. We saw SLT being breached somewhere in 2020 by the Reveal ransomware group. They operated from Russia, and fortunately, once the Colonial Pipeline hack happened, the US State Department and the President Biden's office decided to go specifically after this group, and they were shut down a couple of months ago from, interestingly, a US and Russian joint operation. MAS Holdings was also part of a breach in 2020, although, again, both of these breaches, the operational impact was quite limited, although it did get international and local news attention. Also, the .lk domain breach, as I mentioned before, got global attention in terms of the impact that it had on the top level domain of this country. And because the LK domain is what identifies Sri Lanka, the cybersecurity risk posed from such an exercise was by no means a small one. And of course, in 2016, we saw international headlines being made. Then President Maithripala Sirisena's president website was defaced and breached by a young man who felt that he didn't want to sit for his A-level exams. But that being said, again, it highlighted how cybercrime and cyber breaches have now become mainstream news. And this is what's important, that No longer that it is contained within a organization or a particular division within an organization. It is now mainstream news. It is a point of discussion. It is a point of discussion globally. Global leaders are discussing it. Global think tanks are discussing it. And therefore, the focus of an organization should be a whole of organization approach to it. The third point that I wanted to highlight was the individuals getting impacted by cybercrime and breaches. And this is an initiative that I basically created a hashtag called scamwatch.lk on Twitter, where we try to identify a particular malicious messages or breaches that are going along. And these are some of the examples that have been identified by citizens and that have been seen in the wild per se. In terms of, I'm sure some of you have seen this in your own WhatsApp groups, your family groups, your school groups, etc. But certainly these have caused damage to individuals. These have caused damage to people, and real people have lost real money because of these malicious messages and cybercrime that has been going on. Interestingly, in terms of awareness, and I'm sure my other speakers also will harp on this, I just wanted to highlight a few stats here. This was your first cell on the left-hand side gives you a sort of a capacity building that was done by SLCert, and some of the stats are a little worrying. 35% of the people in the government sector use the same password, and 31% save those passwords in browsers. 45% of them are unaware that their email accounts have been compromised. 39% open any attachment from any person, known or unknown. And if you look at the Sri Lankan youth, which is the middle and the corner cells, very quickly, 65% of them disclose their email address, 47% of them disclose their contact numbers, 24% of them, because although these are teenagers or 18 plus young men, these guys eventually seep into organizations, and 24% of them disclose their work email addresses as well. And finally, in terms of password changing and password policy, 24% of Sri Lankan youth never change their passwords. So that sort of gives you an idea of how bad the problem is, not only from the terms of an organization's point of view, but an awareness point of view, especially for non-technical employees as well as individuals. Finally, I just wanted to give you a snapshot to the audience of what the cybersecurity landscape is like in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is globally ranked 98th in the 2021 Global Cybersecurity Index. I don't want to delve too much into the particular pillars here, but I do want to highlight two important facets here. One is within this year, there will be the Data Protection Act. I'm told by the end of February, it will be presented to Parliament and will be passed. This particular act will have an impact not only for IT-related organizations or technology-related organizations, it will have an impact to everyone because there are specific provisions to inform the government authority that have been set up for any data breaches that might occur. Secondly, there is a Cybersecurity Act that is on its way. Again, we are told that it will be passed this year. And that act also has provisions to ensure protection, to identify vulnerabilities within organizations, to carry out assessments within organizations on their cybersecurity postures, as well as informing a government entity in terms of a cybersecurity breach. So these are the two main important elements that I think you must, as organizations and business leaders, decision makers, be aware of in terms of the policy environment that will be changing. And finally, I hope I didn't take too much time. If you spend more on coffee than you do on security, you will be hacked. And what is more, you will deserve to be hacked. And this is not, I apologize if I'm being blunt, but this is the harsh reality because cybercrime is maturing, the bad guys are maturing, the attacks are maturing. And if you are not ready, at least in terms of where you are, in terms of an assessment at least, you will not know what will hit you, how bad it will be, and what the business impact will be. With that, I thank everybody for their time, and I look forward to the question and answer session.
Thanks, Asela. It was really interesting to hear from you in the landscape of Sri Lanka that there's so much that for us to worry, even from a simple keystroke to a password. And I'm going to be really in touch with you for many days ahead of us to really learn myself as well, because who knows, we at our fingertips managing a lot of devices and a lot of tools these days being technology driven, it's going to be impactful. But again, Asela, thank you very much for sharing. But we look forward to have you on part of the Q&A that will be hosted later on. And I encourage our audience here today, please, please, please feel free to storm up the chat window there with your comments, your interactions, maybe something that you have experienced at first hand that you would like to explore with this community, because we've got some amazing, amazing speakers today lined up with a lot of areas that they could share. So with that, I would now like to hand it over to Hitek, who leads the Microsoft Asia Pacific Security go-to-market team, focusing on data protection, information governance, privacy management, internal risk, and compliance management. He will be sharing insights at new levels of supply chain and ransomware attacks, which is a powerful reminder that we must all work together and in new ways protect our organizations. Today, he will be sharing the Microsoft Asia Pacific security insights and cover cybersecurity risk mitigation to reduce the overall impact of a cybersecurity threat. Hitek, the floor is to you.
Thank you, Ashik. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hitek, and just want to do a sound check and video check. Everything is good? All good, Ashik?
All is well, Hitek. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Will do. Yeah, the standard Microsoft standard NDA, so I'll just skip this. So I'll be sharing some of the information that might be NDA unless stated otherwise. So at Microsoft, we actually bear great responsibility to protect our customers and work together with fellow defenders to make the world a safer place. It may actually surprise you to know that Microsoft is actually the biggest security vendor in the world. We help secure more than 650,000 organizations that uses our services every day, and we take our responsibilities seriously. Being in the trenches for a number of high-profile recent attacks has enabled us to actually use the experience to collectively elevate our defense for the benefit of our customers. Today, we track more than 40 active nation-state actors and over 140 threat groups representing 20 countries. Our broad Microsoft ecosystem from Azure to Dynamics 365 to Xbox gives us a wide view of the security landscape and lets you see our signals at work. We process 24 trillion signals each day and use it to continuously help our customers mitigate threats in real time. As a result, 32 billion email threats alone were blocked in 2021. I shall actually dive deeper into the massive number of signals. As you have heard from the previous presenter, cybercrime is a threat to national security. Cyber criminals are targeting all sectors of critical infrastructure, including healthcare, information technology, and financial services. The cybercrime supply chain, often created by criminal syndicates, continues to mature. Anyone can actually buy services needed to conduct malicious activity for financial gain. Sophisticated cyber criminals are also working for governments, conducting espionage and training in the new battlefield. However, we are actually seeing two positive trends. First, more governments and organizations are coming forward when they are victims. This transparency actually helps to acknowledge that cybercrime is a threat to security. Second, now that governments around the world recognize that cybercrime is a threat to national security, they have made combating it a priority. Governments around the world are now passing new regulations regarding reporting, providing resources, and seeking out private sector assistance. And ransomware actually offers a low investment, high profit business model that's irresistible to criminals. What began with a single PC attacks now has grown to nationwide attacks using multiple extortion methods to target both your data and reputation, all enabled by human intelligence. Through this combination of real-time intelligence and broader criminal tactics, ransomware operators have driven their profits to unprecedented levels. To counter ransomware, efforts between private and public sector is required to reduce the profitability of this crime, make it more difficult for them to enter the ransomware market, and supply victims with effective tools for efficient prevention and remediation. The chart I'm actually showing here shows that there was an overall increase in ransomware encounters in 2019. And when ransomware as a service started to grow, it actually surged to a new high in 2021. From Microsoft, our Microsoft Defender signals have actually detected more than 1 million unique domains used in web-based phishing attacks in 2021, which represents a 5% compromised domains. Phishing is the most common type of malicious email observed in our track signals. These emails are designed to trick an individual, which is you yourself as a customer, into sharing sensitive information, such as usernames and passwords with an attacker. To do this, attackers will actually craft sneaky emails using a variety of themes, such as password resets or other notifications with a sense of urgency to trick you into clicking it. Once the user inputs their credentials in those phishing web pages, they will often be redirected to a legitimate web finder website, unaware that actors have actually obtained their credentials. Meanwhile, the entered credentials are actually stored or sent to the attacker for abuse or sale. Attackers also use consent phishing to actually send users clickbaits. If click will grant the attacker access to application and a wealth of sensitive information. Attackers have designed phishing messages to actually mimic actual emails from a spoof organization to evade detections. Defenders need to protect the company, but also have a duty to maintain the flow of business. And attackers rely on this fact to get their foot in the door. In 2021, Microsoft Security have observed attackers using numerous techniques across multiple malicious email campaigns to make emails appear more legitimate to both end users and protection technologies. For years, attackers have used compromised senders to perpetuate phishing email chains as they use the email's account to actually send additional phishing emails. While this is still extremely prevalent, many companies have begun utilizing multi-factor authentication, which reduces the effectiveness of this email attack. Just as phishing has grown in scale and complexity, malware has also continued to evolve. We have observed changing malware trends in recent years, many of which require innovative defensive strategies and mitigations such as multi-factor authentication that I just mentioned, and robust application security practices. Windows PowerShell, launched by malicious processors with suspicious commands, was the most common behavior we observed from malware in recent months. The next most common were actually attempts by malware to steal credentials data from browser cache. Another method that we actually observe is actually the attackers deliver malware to users through search engine and advertising. Cyber criminals make use of existing infections to actually install browser extension to modify your search results. This page that I'm showing here provides the context of cybersecurity in APAC that is actually expected to actually witness significant growth of cyber attacks through malware and ransomware in the context of digital transformation. This is actually forcing organizations to adopt cybersecurity approaches such as zero trust strategy, cybersecurity mesh, as hybrid work is set to continue even after the pandemic. This is a survey Microsoft has actually done together with Frost and Sullivan. From the numbers, we can see that enterprise cybersecurity complexity is negatively impacting effectiveness. Cyber criminals are now abusing cloud vendors and other information tools such as email, as well as Teams chat to actually find loopholes to penetrate into your organizations. Microsoft have actually taken numerous steps to reduce cloud hosting abuse. We proactively detect abuse at the hosting source before attacks begin. We act on detections in our services to stop the threat. We act on customer and third-party reports, and we notify third-party industry partners of abuse on their cloud detected by using Microsoft security services. And over here, I have more numbers to actually support my claim. Between April and May 2021, the top 5 countries seeing the biggest increase in cyber attacks as compared to May 2020 are Japan at 40%, Singapore at 30%, Indonesia at 25%, Malaysia at 22%, and Taiwan at 17%. The top 3 sectors most affected by these cyber threats are utilities, internet, and managed service providers. The 3 key trends that we capture are the rise in the adoption of cybersecurity mesh. Cloud security is now the top security solution implemented by organizations across Singapore, India, and Australia. One interesting fact that I'm sharing here is that APAC is actually showing the highest growth in distributed denial service, also known as DDoS, protection, and mitigation solutions market between 2021 to 2026. The key takeaway on this page is to protect your organization is the basics matter. Email compromise is a continuing threat vector, and cyber criminals use malware posed as a legitimate software update to target employees. Applying basic security hygiene, such as applying security updates or turning on multi-factor authentication, will put your company in a better security posture. Cybersecurity hygiene is all about maintaining cyber health by implementing a set of tools and practices to increase your organization's resiliency in the face of attacks and exploits. To implement good security practices, take some time to understand your budget, your business priorities, as well as your current business security posture. I will now expand on another 5 key points. First, I will touch on identities. In Azure Active Directory, we actually observe 50 million password attacks every day. Yet, just 20% of users and 30% of global admins are using strong authentication such as MFA that I just talked about. Password-based attacks remain the main source of identity compromise. Other types of attacks are emerging, including consent phishing and attacks on non-human identities. Azure AD is the front door to all Microsoft cloud services. Our sign-in service sees 90 billion authentication requests per day, which gives us great visibility on identity attacks happening across all our clouds. Password-based attacks on user identities are still the most prevalent vector of identity compromise. While password spray and credential stuffing used to be the biggest vectors of identity compromise, in 2021, we observed a significant change of tactics by the bad actor ecosystem. The enhancement of security posture, such as security defaults, MFA adoption, password protection, as well as our investments in detection that includes malicious IP address, password spray detection, have actually caused a reduction in password brute force attacks that use authentication protocols such as IMAP or SMTP. The number of attacks that we attribute to breaches and password spray have decreased significantly. As the world shifted to a hybrid work model, as you have known by now, users are working from anywhere, from any device. Attackers are quickly adjusting their tactics to take advantage of this change. Organizations are left weighing the benefits of enabling bring your own device, or BYOD for short, against the increased risk of the same users unintentionally installing malware while performing non-work related functions on their personal devices. By enabling BYOD using a zero trust model, enterprises can reduce provisioning costs and avoid additional hardware purchases for the hybrid workforce. It's very important to ensure constant verification of the identity of the device and user to get control of critical company resources. For example, you can actually block access to a personal device that has been jailbroken to ensure that enterprise applications are not exposed to known vulnerabilities. A zero trust approach also encourages organizations to assume they are always under attack and that a security incident can happen at any time. To be prepared with a setup that minimizes the blast radius of such an incident, networks should be segmented. Implementing these software-defined perimeters with increasingly granular controls will increase the cost to attackers to propagate through your network and thereby reduce the lateral movement of threats. As migration to cloud accelerates, we are actually seeing that most new deployments are hybrid with connectivity back to on-premises and configured for internet breakout from Azure. All data is ultimately accessed over network infrastructure. Customers are actually using network segmentation for organizing workloads and deploying firewalls for securing traffic across subnets and to the internet. Web application firewalls, or WAFs, have evolved from an initial focus on injection type attacks, such as SQL injection, to include attacks from malicious bots and API abusers. And when combined with DDoS protection, WAF forms an integral part of defense in-depth strategy. I'll now touch on data. Data security and compliance teams need to ensure that management of sensitive data are part and parcel of the business operation to reduce exposure and manage risk. Successful organizations with mature privacy processes combine data governance and security to minimize their privacy data footprint and surface of attack to achieve sustainable compliance. These security and compliance benefits can also be achieved by using similar approaches with other sensitive or regulated data sets. And to close it off, flexible work is here to stay. And with that comes several challenges. Teams have actually become more siloed this year, and digital exhaustion is a real threat. 1 in 5 global survey respondents say that employer doesn't care about their work-life balance. 54% feel overworked, 39% feels exhausted, and trillions of productivity signals from Microsoft 365 quantify the precise digital exhaustions workers are feeling. What does work? Putting your employee engagement, connection, and well-being front and center. Just to close off my session, I just want to highlight cybersecurity threats are always changing. Staying on top of them is vital, but getting ahead of them is paramount. I thank you for your time. I will now hand the time back to Ashi. Ashi, over to you.
Thanks, ETech. I think it was really insightful, the report and the data points you shared across Asia Pacific, and it is quite relevant to us no matter where we are. Data and its sovereignty is at our fingertips and our responsibility to take care of it. And I'm sure many of our in the audience and today kind of rather gathered most of this useful information to be quite prepared in the tactics and also to help mitigate some of these cyber threats that we encounter each and every day. Next, it gives me the pleasure to have Paul Dols from Netherlands, who founded QS Solutions in 2002. Headquartered in Netherlands, QS Solution is an organization that provides software services and solutions that will help to increase the productivity and improve the security position at the same time via innovative cloud-native technology. QS Solutions has become a premier partner for Microsoft, helping our valued customers protect against cybercrime. Paul, we welcome you aboard, and the floor is over to you.
Thanks, Ashik. Thanks for having me today. Let me share my screen and move to presenter mode. I hope everyone can see it.
Yes, Paul, you're good to go.
Okay. So, like Ashik said, the CSAT cybersecurity analysis tool has been used by Microsoft now for quite a few years. And what we try to provide is create for you a plan of approach to become secure with deep insight into your risk, and based on your actual data and security posture of your company. A bit on QS Solutions. So we're an ISV. And also a small system integrator, 60 employees, 400 partners worldwide, based in the Netherlands. We have offices in Germany. And we also have a big hub in Vietnam where we develop, but also have a large consultancy unit that actually works together with Microsoft to do a lot of cybersecurity assessments and security services in the APAC region. So why CSAT actually? Like we've seen in the previous presentations, we saw a lot of law and regulations popping up, even in Sri Lanka now, I just heard, that was news for me, but they're all based on laws where the government tries to make sure that every company or institution makes their plans to become cyber secure and also set some standards for the country and also get certificates in, and that's where CSAT can help you in complying to those law and regulations. And what we also see is that more and more lately, the market demands that you take security seriously. So people who want to connect with you or have connecting systems want to know what your status is in your cybersecurity risk. And of course, brand reputation damage and financial penalties. We see that popping up every day in the news worldwide, but actually that's the top of the iceberg. As we know, a lot of companies don't come with the news and keep it to themselves. So we know that every organization needs an action plan to improve their cybersecurity, but what we also see that business managers and IT and security managers still have a problem in defining what to do. And what we try to do with this CSAT is actually give a simple plan that actually business managers and IT and security managers can align and agree on. And we do that by scanning your full hybrid environment and pull facts and actually give actionable insights based on the facts that we see inside your organization and security estate. And then what we try to do is give you a simple roadmap based on the analysis reports that we gave you, and also help you decide how to invest smartly in the right initiatives based on those facts. And then also what we see more and more people use CSAT as a service, because a one-off project plan is nice, but actually you want to see on a regular basis where you are and what your cyber maturity is and report internally and externally. Thanks to Microsoft, actually, we have been able to create a very large ecosystem worldwide, over 400 partners. And below, I gave you some names of our global partners, but we also have local SIs in every region and country. So you can also always reach out next to Microsoft, also to your local partner, to see what you can do with CSAT. So what I will show you is that the value for you will be then the smart and justified investment in security, and exactly focus on the weaknesses and the quick improvements, and then work on a broader plan of approach. It will save you a lot of time and effort in budgeting and focusing on what's urgent. It will create urgency and relevancy for you. What I just said, the alignment between IT security managers and business managers, that you all are aware of the same plan of approach and the same status. And you can show internally and externally that you work towards compliance. And what we also will provide, next to the full awareness of your security, is also a TCO based on everything that we saw. So it's not only a plan of approach, but also an investment plan, including implementation and what you need to do internally. Like Ashik just introduced, so it's proven technology. Microsoft uses our solution worldwide in a so-called solution assessment program. Last year, over 1,250 have been done. And as you can see in the APAC region, over 172 in all segments, and worldwide, actually, together with our partners, last year we did over 5,000 assessments in all sorts of companies, even the small and medium up to the large enterprises. And this is then the breakdown. Sri Lanka only 4 last year, but we hope after this event that we can get the numbers a bit up. And this year so far in Sri Lanka 2. And in total, you see here the numbers, but it's growing and growing and getting better every week. So how do we do that? So this is actually a view of a typical hybrid IT environment, a bit in the cloud, a lot still on-prem. And what we see a lot is people try to sell to you security based on features, but what we try to do is actually give you actionable insights based on the facts that we see of that hybrid IT environment. I just had a few data examples here, a holistic view. So for example, we would see high risk, a lot of privacy information in your documents. We would see a lot of external users in your local AD. And then we work from high risk to low risk. And then in the shields, you see the solutions actually popping up. What we, sorry about that one, too fast. What we will also will say, if you have a solution currently in place that is okay, from a cybersecurity standpoint of view, that's a great solution, and you tick the box that you're secure there. So we try to focus on the gaps that you have. So what data do we pull? So we pull data from endpoints, Windows, Linux, virtual machines, on-prem and in the cloud. Everything if you're already in the Microsoft Cloud around Office 365, SharePoint, Teams, and Intune, Active Directory on-prem and Azure Active Directory. If you're on Azure, we will pull all the relevant information there, and we have a questionnaire which actually will reflect in theory what you think you have in control and arranged. And here you can see some more details what we pull. So here you can see all the on-prem endpoints from accounts, browser history up to the SQL instances, on-prem services, AD accounts, groups, computer accounts, password policy, email DNS to see if you're set up right against spoofing and phishing, SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint online we do with PI and all the other informations, and then around Linux. And then in the cloud, not only Microsoft, but G Suite. And next month, we will also add AWS in the cloud. So CSAT is deployed on a virtual machine inside your domain. So no data will actually leave your domain. So you don't have to worry about where all the security data that we pull from you will go to. They will stay in your domain on a virtual machine. So we pull all those data in there, and the questionnaire will then reflect in theory what you have. And based on the data, we show you how it really is. And we come up with two deliverables. One will be a Word document aimed at CISOs and IT managers, very comprehensive Word document, and a management presentation, which is meant for the whole top management of the company. And this is then more a technical view. I won't go into every detail, but here you can see the CSAT on-prem and where we will actually collect all the data from. It's agentless, so there will be no footprint inside your infrastructure. And this is how Microsoft defines that cybersecurity assessment based on our CSAT solution. And here you can see, referred to already, we have the syscontrols framework in there, used worldwide and easily to connect to all the local frameworks like GDPR, NIST, POPI in South Africa. Singapore has a different one, and I guess your law and regulation will also be based on these controls. And we connected it also to the Zero Trust framework. And of course, you get the action plan, urgent action items, quick wins. And what I'm trying, and also if you're in the cloud, we also have a look at the Microsoft and Azure Secure Score next to the data in there. And we won't report any license position. So it's not a software asset management assessment. It's purely based on your cyber maturity, the scoring on that, and the improvements and how you can improve. So the process, actually, the good thing is it will only, you will only have to spend 4 hours of your time, and the full process is done actually within 1 or 2 days, but the full time estimate will be in a week or 2 weeks, depending on your availability. So you have preparation together with you, tool deployment, the questionnaire, that's something that needs to be done with the IT manager or CISO. The analysis of the data is of course done by the consultant again. And then you get the delivery where a closing meeting and a report presentation will take place. So the comprehensive report on the left is a Word document. It's a 30-page document, very detailed with all the controls, but also the technical data and what we found. You see here sort of a summary of the first 6 sys controls. You see all the scorings. And here you can see per control what you need to do in activities, the solutions we pop up with Microsoft, the recommendations, and the zero trust zone connected to it. And here you can see in the management presentation, we show you some technical details, for example, here on syscontrol 4 with the privileged accounts, recommendations around the quick wins, things you can do very easily and fast. And then, of course, there is a plan of approach in there with 0 to 30 remediation, 30 to 60, and 90 and beyond. But as we pull all those data, we have a calculator as well. And it's not only the recommendations on security that we put in there, but also all the hardware and software infrastructure elements. And what we can do then is based on those recommendations, we look at your current security cost, and it's indexed for countries. So there's kind of an index for immature and mature countries. It's based on a Gartner model. And what we look at is your cyber maturity, your industry benchmark, to compare what you should have been spending, and then the spend on the zero trust implementation of the Microsoft Cloud and recommendations split up in M365 and Azure. And because we are in there, we have all those infrastructure elements. We can also give you a TCO on lift and shift if you want to move systems to Azure, Azure SQL, with the Azure Virtual Desktop on Windows 365 PC if you want to move your desktops to the cloud. And also we have now a Dynamics TCO if you're a user of Dynamics systems on-prem of Microsoft. This is a case of an account in Switzerland. We've done a lot of nice cases, but you have to ask your local Microsoft representative in the area because I'm not allowed to share those data. So this is based on a true account in Switzerland of Microsoft. And here you can see the company scored a 2 on the levels 1 to 4. So they still need a lot to do. Major risks they run, unsupported systems, unsupported legacy software, a device management not good, and a lack of insight in the environment. And then the management summary on that TCO comes. Because there were 2 here, this is their current cost. This is what it would cost to get between a 3 and a 4. And this is then based on the recommendations on the Microsoft solutions, what it would cost them to get between a 3 and a 4, split up in M365 and Azure. Oops, I was hanging. Then you can see here per control, we have a plan of approach with the urgent action items, with the action you need to take, and also associated products and the plan of approach here on the quick wins. After you've implemented everything, we think your company score will be a 3.3 if you follow up all the recommendations. And the good thing, it's not only about software, but also a lot of actions and things you need to do inside your organization. And here you can see then, based on, we use then, of course, what you need to do around identities, devices, data, and around apps, for example, here. And then 30 to 90, make a good cybersecurity strategy, more things to do on identities, devices, data, and a migration. So we found in this case a full data center still based on Windows 2012. And we actually came up with a TCO on migrating that whole infrastructure, where we show them that their current costs are way higher than if they would move everything up to Azure in a lift and shift motion. So now I come to the end of my presentation. So my call to action for you would be, if you're interested in such an assessment, nominate yourself to Microsoft. You can scan the QR code and fill in the form, and you can get your free cybersecurity assessment performed by Microsoft. That's it from my side. So back to you, Ashik.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think you have been really a partner in crime for us to really take it forward to help mitigate some of these cyber threats in terms of our customers to help prevent them and also to identify. So let's just do a recap from the three speakers that we've had. So we had Asela, who had been sharing some really country relevant information to say that, hey, it's not only a Western world challenge, it is also at our local where the challenge is really doubling up since of 2020. And we need to take some mitigations and also preventive measures rather to help us take things into consideration to help protect our data. Second, we had HeatX sharing from a Microsoft lens and from a report that we've also shared publicly in terms of how Asia Pacific is also vulnerable in terms of certain areas that we are forgetting to look at and which costs more or less our data at the hands of a cyber criminal. Lastly, who came on board where Paul shared how we at an organization rather could take certain measures and also a tool to really help shape the security infrastructure within your organizations, even with those vulnerabilities that we may not even see, although it is kind of the simplest thing that we may see all the time on our screen popping up or even at your device that you're using. Now it's more or less the Q&A session, and I would love to have Asela, HeatX, and Paul coming back on video if we can, and have some Q&As really responded with the audience today. I'm also going to look at my next screen to just look at the questions or the comments that we may have received from the chat. But I did pin one, if I'm not mistaken, one Mr. Pasan, who had shared an interesting question. I'm just keeping it open, so please feel free to shed some light here, gentlemen. So there is one question or a comment rather. Ransomware is a common cybersecurity threat, but as consumers, what are the ways we can spot or identify ransomware and keep our devices safe? Could maybe Asela or HeatX, could you answer, or anyone? I'm quite, you're free to answer that question, please.
Well, interesting question there. I'll take it first, gentlemen, if you don't mind. Interesting question. How do you keep yourself safe from ransomware? Because if you do get the ransomware note, that itself tells you you're already in trouble. And the most important element is that in terms of ransomware, if you look back, the breach happened perhaps weeks or months ago. And in fact, they are dormant in the system, and they're gathering the analytics, they're gathering the baseline, and then only the bad guys are going after launching a full ransomware scale attack. So this is what's important. So I think this is where your policy measures as an organization comes into being. Your compliances kick in, because if you have that constant verification, checking of your threat level, your threat assessment, where you are right now, how is your patch management, is your systems updated, is everything online, and ensuring that everything is okay, then that sort of lays the groundwork for a ransomware incident not to occur. Because if it does, and you see when you log into a machine and you do see the ransomware note, I think the basically it's the point of no return. And then you have to work on your digital forensics and your response plan on how you're going to tackle that situation. So my word of advice is, how do you spot it? It's very difficult to spot because they are dormant in the system, and it's not only the date that you are compromised. You have to really roll back the clock and see where your breach in fact occurred sometime back. I hope I did justice to that question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, Paul, do you have any comments on that? Yep.
Yeah, also, HeatX mentioned zero trust, so I would recommend everyone to have a look at the zero trust principle, because the classic approach of trying to defend yourself is not working anymore, as we can see day to day. So please move to the zero trust architecture. And the nice thing about it, it assumes a breach, so everybody can be hacked or breached. Whatever you do, it can be, but minimize the blast radius by preventing lateral movement and segment everything. Make sure everything is secure, and make sure also that the users have very least privileged or on time, just in time access. and verify explicitly. Always authenticate everything, data points, identity, devices, everything. So if you have a look at that zero trust principle, which Microsoft actually fully embraced with all their solutions, and that's the way to go. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah, if I can just add on to what Paul as Atala has mentioned, actually zero trust is not a product or a rather it's a strategy, a mindset as well as a framework that actually assumes that all activities, even by known users, could be an attempt to actually breach the systems. It actually requires all the users, no matter whether you're in a corporate network or not, or in the public, to be authenticated, authorized, and continuously validated before being granted to access to apps and data. And this actually approach leverages advanced technologies that I mentioned about multi-factor authentication, conditional access, modern device management, and next-gen security and compliance technology to actually verify the user's identity and maintain security system. This is actually a significant departure from the old days of doing things like such as traditional network security. And once someone was inside the network, they were trusted. And I always tell my customers, because we got a lot of questions on this, and if you're wondering where to start, always begin with a very strong cloud identity foundation as the first step of defense. Gaps in protecting identities such as weak passwords or lack of MFA authentication are really opportunities for a threat actor to find their way into the system and move laterally across your environment, targeting things like email and source code and critical databases. I hope this answer helps to address your ransomware concern.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. I think it does. And Paul did share a snippet of a zero trust slide, if I'm not mistaken, and the cybersecurity assessment areas as well. So maybe these are some very good pointers for the individuals and also any organization to consider. We got, actually, with the interest of time, we got 3 questions, but I will address it to each of you. So Asela, there is one question that we would really like to understand from you. What are the key cyber security threats that would impact Sri Lankan businesses in a present day environment? If you could shed some light to us. Asela, you might be on mute. Yep.
I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you can.
Okay. So interesting question. If you look at the global and as well as the regional impact, I think, and I think one thing I highlighted in my presentation as well is how much crypto has grown. And a direct impact of that is ransomware actors, malicious actors using cryptocurrency as a method of payment. And therefore, we see a spike in ransomware because ransomware is an interesting threat that can be put in front of an organization. It disrupts the operation. It basically, you look at a timing clock right in front of you. So you know your operations are impacted. You know you have to do something to unlock that data or get that data as soon as possible. And that sort of sense of urgency creates the perfect environment for a malicious actor to extract money or in fact plant a more malicious code in the systems to be used later. So number one threat in my mind right now, because if you roll back the clock, sometime back it was DDoS attacks, but I think bad guys have figured out that DDoS attacks is expensive for themselves. And mind you, like the other speakers mentioned, this is a criminal enterprise that we're dealing with. This is no longer just a bunch of guys getting together and launching attacks. So the most cost-efficient, cost-effective way for them to get a return on investment in terms of cybercrime is ransomware. And right now, that's where the trajectory is headed. So for Sri Lankan businesses, I would say be very cautious on ransomware, and because that is the biggest threat that we see. And some of the examples I took, we have been, in fact, some of the major corporations have been hit by ransomware itself.
Thanks, Asela. Thank you very much for really sharing that insight. And I think it's a really good indication for many of us at organizations today at how imminent that we need to take the responsibility of securing our data. So we move on to HETEC. So there is one other question that we would really like to hear from you. From a customer perspective, how does security fit into their digital transformation priorities? And how has this changed over the last year with COVID?
Yeah, Ashik, I think that's a very good question. So with the increasing focus on digital transformation and now hybrid work security is front and center, every one of our customers is actually asking for help with their security posture. And across those conversations, we actually see a few themes. First, customers actually wants to create a seamless, secure experience for every employee, from the information worker to the frontline worker. And that's driving demand across identity access management solutions such as Azure AD for single sign-on as well as MFA authentication. We also see traction in Microsoft Endpoint Manager for mobile devices and app management. And then customers actually want to have further consolidation and cost saving without giving best of breed capabilities and quality. Those that invested in technology from point solution providers are actually discovering that there's actually silos and gaps between solutions. And this actually means opportunity for threat actors to come into the network and do harm to the organization.
Thanks,
So,
Hitek. I think that's
yeah.
really, yeah. Yeah, please continue, Hitek. I had a following question, but please proceed. Yes.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll just close off. So another big concern we're actually seeing is actually compliance is another big consideration. So if you're actually dealing with complex regulatory environment, privacy controls, as people move in and out of the country, please talk to your Microsoft rep. We can actually help you manage those risks and actually build trust. Thank you, Ashit.
Thanks, Hitek. So that's a good call to action. If you are really interested, yes, please do reach out to the Microsoft Sri Lanka team or any from anywhere in the world. The Microsoft team, account team will be there to assist you. So the last but not least, Paul, we have an interesting question. Let me couple it up to kind of summarize and recap on what you presented today. First and foremost, thank you for sharing. Yes, the CSAT analysis tool can be performed by Microsoft. But the question for some of these organizations and the individuals who will be getting this service would be around what, after the assessment has been done with the first report, rather, Paul, how can an organization get the follow-up and whether they could use the software themselves? That's one element. Second, would be, since they are allowing your tool to come in and as an organization you represent, what will be the privacy and security kind of the process you will ensure for that engaged organization?
Yeah. So let me start with the last question first. So the privacy and security, I mentioned it briefly in the presentation that it's not a SaaS solution. So there will be no data transported to any cloud because that's something you don't want to have an analysis tool doing, pushing it all to a cloud that you're not ready a customer of. You don't know what they're doing with their data. So CSAT is deployed on a virtual machine inside your domain. So no data will actually leave your domain. So there is no problem in any privacy or anything else. We've been thoroughly vetted by the CILA authorities of Microsoft. And you from Microsoft know what kind of process we went through. So it's all vetted. We as an organization ourselves are GDPR and ISO compliant. So we took all the precautionary steps to make sure that your data are in good hands. And by the way, they're in your own hands. So no data will leave you. And what we see a lot, so I mentioned all the partners we have worldwide. So smaller companies mostly buy subscription via the resellers, by Tech Data Cynics or other distributors like Ripe in the region. But we also have partners like SIs who then sell CSAT as a subscription to you, and you can always come directly and buy it straight from us as well if you want to do it directly. And the cool thing is that you saw those scorings on the sys controls. Once you do it every quarter or every half year, you can see the delta. And it's very nice, especially for IT managers, to show internally and externally, hey, I was here, this was the plan, this is what we've done, and the scoring is now here, so we're improving. And mainly also with all the laws and regulations, it's not that you have to be fully compliant yet, but at least have a plan how to get there. Yeah, so and this will keep following up, and in the end you will be fully compliant. And then comes the trick that even if you're fully compliant, you have to show every 3 months that you still are compliant. And then the scoring will keep the same. Yeah. Does that answer the question, Ashik?
Yes, Yes, Paul, thank you very much for sharing that as well. So that's about it for today. But gentlemen, thank you very much for really sharing that insight. And we're really, really humbled to have you all on board to share this with the wider audience who have joined us today. I would now like to hand it over to Chintaka Dunuvila, my colleague, who is the Territory Channel Manager and the SMB lead, to do the closing and take some key takeaways, rather. CD, over to you.
Hey, hi, Ashik, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
And see me as well?
Yes.
All right, thanks. So good evening, everyone. My job today is pretty easy, do the closing. So let me first thank everyone today who have made it possible, reserved your time to be a part of this webinar, which is very relevant, and for being engaged, a big thank you. I also need to thank the Chamber for leading this initiative, very relevant to all of us with the digital transformation, increasing by tenfolds. I think this type of topic is very relevant for us to know, because as much the digital transformation is on the rise, we have the bad actors also doing their day job, and we need to be protected. So thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for your initiative and allowing us to speak to your membership. Need to thank the speakers also, Asela, Hitek, Paul, and our energetic Ashik for a great, the topics what you all came up were very relevant, in-depth, and I'm sure the listeners got a good insight of what the realities is all about. So just to, if I am to sort of summarize and take the most three relevant areas for me is as Asela said, I think cybercrime is in our backyard. As officials have already said, 7 million devices are affected in Sri Lanka is something to be alarmed about. We all need to make sure that we safeguard our IT inventory. Secondly, cybersecurity threats are always changing. Staying on top of them is vital, but making sure that we are ahead of these criminals, these bad actors, is paramount. Getting to know a partner who could give you that protection is the key thing in this fight against cybercrime. So get to know the security partner well. That security partner needs to have that expertise, experience to make sure that you and your data are safe. Thirdly, I think we all need to know what our vulnerabilities are. Where are we in terms of our vulnerabilities in the cyber world? If we know that, I think we can find the solutions. Microsoft can come and help you. A vendor who could sort of help you protect yourself can come in, as long as we know where you are in terms of your vulnerabilities. In that context, I think the cybersecurity analysis is key. That gives us a data-driven conversation of your vulnerabilities. And let's if you can, it's a free offering what we have come out for the membership. Take this. I think the chamber will follow up with an email. Even in that also, you can revert to us and say you're ready to sort of go through this analysis where we could come and help you out. So finally, I think we would like your feedback. There's a QR code here. Please scan. There are a few questions you need to answer so that we could also know how this session worked, and we come to you with many more webinars like this with the partnership of the chamber. My name is Chintaka Dunuvila. I lead the SMB business for Microsoft. My email address is here. Do connect with me if there's anything. Microsoft is here for the long run, as long as we safeguard our customers and the world at large is our mission also. So thank you again. Let's meet up soon. Thank you. Over to you, Ashik.
All right, thank you very much for really being there. We know we just ran a little bit over time, but really thank you for your patience and being throughout this session. But if there are any queries, any thoughts, any comments, please feel free to reach out through the Chamber Academy and to Microsoft. We are here to help you. And please take on the CSAT offering that we are offering to you all. There's a nomination process, which we will share in due course, maybe tomorrow as a follow-up email. And I would also encourage you all to please feel free to have this survey filled so that we also could take some feedback and also assist you in the next session that we may bring it forward, either from Chamber Academy or from Microsoft. So thank you very much and have a pleasant evening and the rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.